I love to start with a quote, and I found this one by Thomas Crum. The quality of our lives depends not on whether or not we have conflicts, but on how we respond to them. Now, I wanted to start with a quick story as well. If you watched the movie Encanto, which was a massive global phenomenon, there was this song called We Don't Talk About Bruno. And I always looked at conflict like that as well. I never like to talk about conflict. I never like to have it. And growing up in my family, Nigerian culture, conflict is something that you just don't address. You have it and then you move on. But it is a very toxic way to live because you never address it, you never get over it, you never discuss it. And it was just something that we never did. So I love that in these monthly topics, like it challenges me as well to create a lesson plan to share with you all and get my perspective on how I've been able to grow and handle conflict and deal with it in my creative career, but also in my personal life. So what I'm going to share with you are conflict resolution skills to master. Because again, conflict is not indicative of you messing up or you not having the tools or being equipped with the emotional intelligence to deal with life. It is literally something that catalyzes growth. It helps us grow as people, but it's also necessary to even strengthen our relationships with our family. Okay, so let's start with the skills. The very first skill that you want to master in conflict resolution is tact. Tact/diplomacy. Tact is something that is, if you can master this skill, not only is it amazing for conflict resolution and conflict management, but I think it's something that you can use across the board. And tact is basically an ability to express hard truths in delicate situations. And you can imagine why this is powerful in conflict resolution. The reason I was so bad at it was because I had the hard truths that I wanted to express, but I would wrap it in a bow and make it all fluffy and pretty. I was really scared to deliver hard truths, but I had to learn. I'm like, Glo, in order for them to understand your point of view or your perspective, and for you to understand theirs, and for you to both have meet in the middle, find that common ground, you have to be able to deliver hard truths. And you have to do it in a delicate way and in these delicate situations, okay? So that's the first one, tact. The second one is patience, the skill of not acting on your impulses. Now, I don't know if anyone is big on horoscopes, but I'm an Aries, and we are said to be the most impulsive zodiac on the chart. So I'm big on my impulses. I love acting on impulses. So patience, the skill of not acting on your impulses. Why is that huge in conflict resolution and conflict management? Because the minute you get that email that triggers you, is it a good idea to respond as you are angered, as you are flaring up, as your heart is racing inside? That is probably the biggest thing that I had to work on. When I would get triggering emails or projecting emails from strangers, just completely criticizing something. And I'm just like, oh, and I want in my natural human response to respond and make them feel the way they made me feel. But patience, developing the patience to say, okay, first of all, let me sleep on this. Second, do I accept this? Or is this something that I can reject? Because sometimes conflict it's not always right. Someone could start a conflict with you and it could be completely baseless, okay? So having the patience to assess whether a conflict is even worth addressing, whether something even deserves your energy, whether something is even worth addressing and responding to, okay? The third skill to master is compassion. Now, this is being able to see the humanity in others, no matter the disagreement. And of course, I have a book recommendation for everything, The Mastery of Self by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. talks a lot about this. It's an incredible book because it talks so much about compassion and being able to see the God and the light in everything and in everyone. And the minute you can do that, especially in conflict, you're able to say, you know what, this is just another person navigating this world the best that they can. And no matter what you believe, there is this divine, pure light in everyone. And if you can see that reflection of light, that reflection of divine, that reflection of source, that reflection of God in every person, it allows you to have a little bit more compassion for the conflict and your way of approaching it. Okay. Number 4, accountability. Taking responsibility for your part in every conflict. Huge. This one is huge because no matter what happens in any conflict, it is so important to recognize what your part is. Okay, someone might have said this or someone might have started this, but what's my part? What's my role? Where do I play? Where do I play a part in this? Because conflict does involve at least 2 people. So taking accountability, even if you don't think it's fully your fault, still being able to take accountability is such a mature thing to do. And it also helps you maintain a level of objectivity as well, because you can see from two perspectives, which leads to the 5th one, objectivity. Seeing both sides of every situation and taking away your own personal bias. In conflict resolution, in conflict management, oftentimes we can only see the conflict from our perspective, but it is a massive sign of maturity if you're able to be objective and say, you know what, I can see why they might think this. I can see why they might feel this. I can see how they can perceive it this way. Objectivity, seeing both sides of every situation and taking away your personal bias. The 6th skill to master is humility, not being above anybody or any situation. No matter what happens, knowing that you are not above conflict. It's going to happen. It has happened. It's going to continue to happen. Conflict is a part of life. It reminds us that we're human. It is what it is. It is something that we are going to deal with until the end of time. Okay. And not being above it and saying, oh, this is just beneath me. Oh, I don't have time for this. No, humility or conflict grows you. Have humility and know that, like, okay, if I have to deal with this, or if I'm going to deal with this, what can I learn? What's something that I can do to improve myself through this conflict? So we are talking about winning the year. Winning the year. How many of you all already feel like you're winning? And if you don't, can you think about the last time you won something? When was the last time you won something? Like, just think about that. Embody that moment. Because I remembered very quickly, as I was looking over my notes, I was like, oh, I got to start with this story. I was in Colorado teaching myself how to snowboard. No, not teaching myself. I had a tutor. But I was like, I want to start the new year doing something so random, so different, but most importantly, potentially starting with a fail. I have never snowboarded before. It is not easy, but I love that I allowed myself to try something new to start the year. Because so often we only focus on doing things that are easy. So when is the last time you won something? For me, I love this game called Scattergories. Does anyone know the game Scattergories? Classic, classic. It is so good. Someone type it in the chat and everyone get your life together. Go out and buy the board game because it is better than Monopoly, better than chess and checkers. It is incredible. So I won a game of Scattergories with 4 of my friends when we were learning how to ski and snowboard in Colorado. And we did 8 games and I won the best out of 8 games. And I won by about 4 points total. But oh my goodness, it was competitive. It was slightly toxic, but it was thrilling. There is something about winning that just pulls you into your best self. And let's be honest, the feeling of winning is up there with, can we be adults here? Are we adults? Just are we adults here? Because winning is up there with orgasms. Winning is the mental orgasm, okay? Let's be honest. So there are certain things I do to analyze, optimize, and catalyze my wins. I'll say that again. There are certain things that I do to help me analyze, optimize, and catalyze
My wins. Now I think of this quote by Mark Twain: history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So what does that mean? If you want to change your life in any way, if you want to have a different year, you've just simply got to do something different. A lot of us just hope and wish our way into change when we've really got to work for it. Okay, so my journey of entrepreneurship, many of you know the story, started 20 years ago when I was 11 years old on career day. And I've had so many seasons of loss and failure and confusion, which is why I can speak with so much clarity and conviction today. My goodness, it is the experience and the failure that gives you the wisdom and the depth. I'll say that again. It is the experience and the failure that gives you the wisdom and the depth. The people I look up to most likely failed more than others. If you want to be respected, be willing to fail publicly. Fail out loud. Allow yourself to try and fail and try again. I've had seasons of my life in my entrepreneurial journey where I made no money, but I had a lot of time. And then there were seasons where I made great money, but I had no time. Now I'm in a season where I'm like, balance, glow, balance. It is out there for you. So last year I took a step back and I took 4 months off to really figure out, how do I balance the two, money and time? And so every year, and you might hear that many people do this, a focus word or a word of the year or an intention for the year. My word of the year is freedom. I think freedom is at the root of all my joy and the catalyzer to an abundance mindset. Freedom is like my North Compass. It's my North Star. It's what I look at when I'm dictating my schedule and figuring out what I want to do with my life. And not just a word of the year, but I went even further. It was 11:45 p.m. I was in Colorado slopes. It was just a few minutes before midnight. And I was like, I need something deeper than just a word. Like, okay, yes, I want freedom in 2022, but something else, think, Glow, think. And I'm with my friend and I'm like, ask me questions, talk to me about my purpose, ask me things so that I just need to download thoughts. Ask me things. Like, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to do? How do you want to make people feel? And we're just yelling at each other. It was the most exciting and probably confusing conversation for a bystander. But what came out of that was the pursuit of possibility. The pursuit of possibility. I'd love for you all to write your words and phrases of the year in the chat and inspire the rest of the community. The pursuit of possibility. I want to show people what's possible by doing the otherwise impossible. Every time I take a step outside of my lane, every time I step outside of the box that people put me in, I love to show others what they can do too. It's not about me. Your life and your journey has nothing to do with you. You are a catalyst. You are a vessel. You are a mirror to your community to let them know what's possible for them. So the pursuit of possibility is all about mirroring the possibilities that others have in themselves. How many lives can I live? How many souls can I reach? How many lessons can I pass on? That's what's gonna really drive me forward. I'm going to shout some of you out. So Ray, you got delegate, Mark, intention, Nancy, appreciate, Raywin, Rain, sorry if I butchered your name, light, Ray is fun, Neha is focused, Nadia is peaceful, Faith is inspired, Jenny wants clarity, Beth wants to serve. This is amazing. I love this. And if you don't have your word yet, like just scroll through the chat and allow other people's intention to inspire you. Okay, beautiful. One thing about productivity, I started to realize this with a lot of people. Why is it that we only work hard when we're being rewarded for it? Think about the last time you really put your mind towards something. You really dedicated yourself to a goal. You really were like, I'm ready to be productive at this. Because there was probably a reward or there was some type of positive reinforcement on the other side. That is bad. Dr. Dooney, I see you nodding. That is bad. And I have an example. In the past,
I remember I would have these group of students that I would lead and teach. And I was like, why aren't they motivated? Why don't they want to like be better? Why don't they want to be educators? Like, why do I have to constantly push and tell them like, you got this, you got this, you got this. And then I was like, okay, what if I put prizes at the end? And so at the end, I picked the top 5 students in the class. And you know what happened? Instead of those 5 students being praised for their work, all of the other students were like, wait, I didn't know there was a prize. Glow, that's not fair. You didn't tell us that there was something to win. I was like, I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to. If you are only wanting to work hard because there's a reward at the end of it for you, check your heart, check your mission, check your goals, check your alignment, check your intention. It was so telling that people were like, I'm willing to work if I know that I will get something out of it. Here's the thing, you can't cheat life. Like I might be rewarding you with something, but life rewards the people who are willing to put in the work, to do the hard things, to show up consistently, to have balance in their life, maintain integrity with everything that they do. And what I love about this new era and this new age, I'm currently reading a book called Halftime by Bob Buford. And what it talks about is that people no longer want to work until retirement and then just sleep until they die. Like maybe a few years ago, that sounded like the dream. Like you just want to get to retirement age and then you're just a log until death. Like, you know, it sounds appealing for a couple minutes, but it's like, people want to do meaningful work until they die. And doing meaningful work is a lifetime commitment to productivity and figuring out ways to develop habits, to maintain your own alignment and maintain intention in everything that you do. So 10 things that have helped me be more productive. Make sure your journals are out. And like Brendan said, I'm someone who I feel like I've lived 6 lives, maybe 7 lives. You all might know about 2 of them, but quick context, I've been to almost 90 countries. I'm currently in country number 89, Turks and Caicos, and I have a goal to travel every country in the world. I'm not in a rush. There are people that have beat Guinness records. I actually have friends who have been to every country in the world and they try to do it at a certain age. For me, I just like it as a lifelong pursuit. It keeps me hungry, it keeps me eager, it keeps me as a student. And I just love that there's an opportunity, especially living in a virtual age, that you can work and live anywhere in the world. So being a world traveler, being a travel blogger, sometimes my brand deals were a little bit slow. So I had to get creative with how I would make money. And one of my students, one time I was teaching English in Spain, and one of my English students that I was tutoring, her dad overheard that I played college basketball. And he said, oh my gosh, actually my neighbor is a coach of a semi-pro team here in Spain. Like, are you curious? And I was like, I hadn't played in a couple of years. I was, a little bit out of shape, but I said, sure. And so I went to my neighbor. I borrowed his basketball shoes that were 3 sizes too big. It was like a 12.5. I wear a 9. But I tied it up really tight. And I was like, I'm going to make this work. And I remember showing up to tryouts like, this is terrifying. It was in Barcelona, or if you're Spanish, Barcelona. And going there in Catalonia, they don't even speak Spanish, they speak Catalan. So all of my Spanish lessons can kind of like go down the drain because I was there to speak Catalan with my teammates. Long story short, I try out, I push it, I give it my all. They sign me on the spot. So now I am an official semi-pro basketball player in Spain. La Liga Femenina 2 is where I played, and it was incredible. And when I think about that, the coach pulled me aside. He said, all right, vamos, Gloria, bueno, no. He's like, you're great, we love you, but I have to be honest, you're out of shape. I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was like, it wasn't something that I didn't know. Like I had known it. I was having siestas on the beach. I was eating anything I wanted. I was enjoying the travel life, and I was young. So when you told me that I had weight to lose and that I needed to get back in basketball shape, instead of take it as like a trigger, because again, when we know that we've failed in an area of our life, someone calling it out isn't meant to attack us. It's meant to remind us that I know you're better than this. I know you can do better than this. Over the next 5 months, I lost the 40 pounds. The next 5 months. You know how I did it? I made sure every night I gave myself a 3 to 4 hour window. Before I went to bed, I would not eat. And my dinner was fruits. I was like, I want to make sure if I'm going to bed and I'm laying with food in my stomach, I want it to be something that's nourishing. So I made sure I ate fruits for dinner. And then during the day, drinking a lot of water, staying active, running a mile 5 times a week. Did that very consistently for 4 months, and eventually the weight dropped. But something like that, I was like, when someone gives me a mission, I don't know if you're the kind of person that rises to the occasion or takes offense and sulks. If someone is telling you that, you know, you can do bigger things in life, you were meant to do this, I see this in you. Are you going to take that as like, oh, well, I kind of see it too, or are you going to rise to the occasion? So many times in my life, travel blogging, semi-pro basketball, wedding photographer, in every area, in every season, I've had to rise to the occasion, not being comfortable with where I was at, but knowing that I can improve. So tool number 1, use Toggl, Toggl. Use Toggl to track how much time you are spending on an activity. It's an app, and you can also download the Google Chrome plugin for your desktop. But it's crazy because I remember Prince EA said this quote just a couple of weeks ago, or last week at Napa Valley with Brenda's mastermind. But he said, if you want to crack it, you got to track it. And I was like, that's why I love Toggl so much. Toggl allows me to see where I'm wasting time, where I'm spending too much time, and what could be delegated. A lot of us are spending useless hours on things that aren't moving the needle, things that aren't even making sense for the place in our business that we're at. So use Toggl, and then only allow yourself to work 45 minutes to 60 minutes at a time. After an hour, you're useless. I know Brendan goes by this thinking as well. Your brain can't work on the same thing for too long of a time. So give yourself, even if it's a 2-minute break, if it's a 5-minute break, if it's a 10-minute break, give yourself margin in between activities. And after you've worked on something very hard for an hour, stand up. Like you can do Brendan's Qigong and, you know, all the goofy stuff. I'm kidding, Brendan. But do something to move your body and just allow yourself to kind of recalibrate. A lot of us are so used to putting our heads down and just, we wonder why our back hurts. We've been hunched over for the last 18 months on our laptops. Check your posture, check your feet, check your movements, check your limbs, move them around, okay? Friendship, tough stuff. Because when we look at all the friends that we've had in our life, they can be life-giving, exhilarating, healing. And then you look at the other side, which is the majority of my history. They can be exhausting and toxic and life-sucking. And I was always like, what's wrong with me? Why do I attract leeches? Why am I attracting such negative people? Like, what am I doing wrong that I can't find the type of friends that I need to grow, to heal, to be a better person? Because everyone's heard the quote, you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with most. And I fully believe that. So we are so quick to give someone the friend title. Oh, that's my friend. But you met them 10 minutes ago. How do you know they're your friend? What have they done to prove that they deserve a spot in your life? Like a valuable spot in your life. We're so quick to label people as friends. There's a spectrum. There is a spectrum. Instead of oscillating between stranger and friend, like there's other words that you can use, other things that you can call people so that you don't feel that weight and that pressure. So the very first type of friend, we're going to call her Jealous Julia. Jealous Julia. Can anyone relate to having a jealous Julia in your life? You just felt jealous energy from them. Jealousy is such a weird emotion because even though it might be it's a bad emotion, but it doesn't make someone a bad person. I could always recognize, oh my goodness, their jealousy is so heavy, it makes it hard to want to be around them. When I think of the jealous Julia in my life, I spent 8 years as a travel blogger. So I was solo traveling for most of my 20s, from 22 to 29. I was just traveling around the world, living out of a suitcase, actually 4 very overweight suitcases. And it was an amazing life. I was building my brand as a travel blogger, telling stories of other countries, and also the story of myself, becoming of age and realizing who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in my adulthood. But I remember having other travel bloggers that I would meet and network with and find on my journey. And of course, I'm a naturally giving person. I'm an Enneagram 7. Does anyone know their Enneagram numbers? 7s are enthusiasts. We're scatterbrained, but we're also really fun. We're excitable, we're happy, we're joyful, we're charming, we're kind, we're generous, but there's also some other qualities, but this is not the purpose of this call. We have a lot of great qualities about us. And so it makes it very easy to be friends with us. But my goodness, even though someone wants to be my friend, doesn't mean I have to be theirs. And what I started doing as a travel blogger, meeting all of these people, I was like, okay, well, they want to be my friend. So let me force myself to be their friend. Like, I'm just going to find a way to make this work, even though I felt this really jealous energy constantly. Jealousy of and things that I didn't even think that I had correct. I was still finding my voice. I was still figuring out what I wanted to do. But even to the point, and this woman, the Julia, because we're going to use hypothetical names here, but Julia was a gorgeous person, physically gorgeous. But every time I was around her, I would dress myself down because I recognized, I'm like, I can tell that she feels bad. If more guys are looking at me when we're out together, I know that she starts to get jealous of that. So let me down dress, literally dress like a bum when I'm around her. How toxic is that? How, I look back on that, I'm like, Glow, why? Why did you do that? Sometimes, and many of you have such a big heart that you can recognize the toxicity in someone else and you change yourself to accommodate their jealousy. And that's what I did. And I was suppressing and dimming my light and shutting down parts of me that made me literally glow. And I was like, why am I doing this? It got to the point, it got so bad because, she was also in this industry and also trying to make a name for herself as a travel blogger. She started stealing my content. And now we're getting into intellectual property. I would write a blog post and I would post it, and then she would copy it word for word and change the title. She didn't think, because I wasn't actively reading her blog, she thought I would just never find out. And other bloggers had to literally forward me the link and say, why is this person stealing your words? And I was like, what is going on here? And all this time, I'm letting you in. I'm giving you resources. I'm giving you my energy, giving you my time. The most valuable, non-renewable resource that we all have is time. Money spends once. Time, you can't get that back. Okay. So I'm like, I've given this person so much and this is how they're treating me. Why am I keeping them in my life? And I also recognized that, how do I have this conversation where I call them out on what they're doing and then let them go? And one thing that I was realizing is that sometimes when someone is so toxic for you, you don't have to pinpoint their toxicity in the separation. And so again, and this is what it takes to be a leader, these communication skills. I could have been like, you know what, you are toxic, but that's not what I did. I was like, you know what, in this next season of my life, I'm just focusing on myself. And I just need a little bit of space. And, I'm working on this. And I named a couple projects that I was working on, but I made it about me. Because in life, not every lesson that people need to learn needs to come from you. Let someone else teach that lesson of your jealousy and the way it comes off. That's not my lesson to teach. Life will give you that lesson in the way that it's meant to. But you can't be everyone's teacher. And not everyone is ready to learn from you in the way that you want to teach or serve them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this person go, but I'm going to let them go with grace. Because at the end of the day, I have to live with my conscience. I don't want to go to bed knowing that I popped off. Translation went off. Another translation was rude, yelled at someone. I don't want to have that, on my heart, that I just was really just rudely rejected someone. I still want them to feel whole.
At the end of the day, they're human and we all have our flaws. So when I, removed them from my life, I made it about me, not about them. And you're going to get to situations in life where there's going to be a difference between removing someone and realigning them. Removal versus realignment. Because most people in your life that are your friends just need some realignment. Maybe they're in your inner circle, top 5, top 10. Anyone remember MySpace? We had the top 8. Like people would lose friendships because they weren't in your top 8. Like that was another period of time. But sometimes someone doesn't need complete removal from your life. Maybe they just need to be realigned and maybe pushed back to your top 50. But this person needed complete removal because I started to realize that this person isn't adding value to my life. And when I think about friendships and what we look for in friends, obviously some people start friendships out of a selfish pursuit because they're like, you know what, I need more positive people in my life. I know Glo's really positive, so I'm going to be her friend. You know that the number one DM I get, this is actually really interesting. I don't think I've shared this before. The number one DM I get, Glo, I love your energy. I want to be your friend. What do I do with that? And here's the thing, I appreciate and I am so grateful that people can see that energy and that they want to be around me. But one thing that also shows me is that friendship is a selfish pursuit. I see someone's light, I want to just attach. You know who else is attracted to light? Leeches, mosquitoes, bugs. You see my light, but you haven't given me the opportunity to see yours. Or what are you offering? What are you bringing to the table? It has to be this mutual give and take. So those DMs, I always feel a bit awkward because I'm not honestly sure how to respond to that. And I know how I show up in this world. I know the light that I bring in this world. I know how to make people feel better about themselves when they're around me. Like that's a gift. And I love that gift and that discernment of energy and spirit. Like I love that I have that, but doesn't mean everyone deserves or is entitled to that light. Think about that. If you know you have a light and a positive energy about you, just because someone knows you doesn't mean they're entitled to that. You get to decide who you show up as your best self with. We're going to start with this quote by Tony Clark. If you want to know what your purpose is, it's to make the most of your talents and skills for the greater good. And that means starting with yourself. Finding purpose. I love that Koya mentioned. It's not something you find. It's something that's within. I absolutely love that thought process because I think many of us go through life on a search from one purpose to another. But type me in the chat if you currently are on a journey of your next purpose. You're on a journey of the next thing that's going to fulfill you. You're on a journey of understanding who you are and why you're here. Because that's constantly me. Week to week, I'm like, who am I, God? Existential crisis aside, a book that also really helped me with this, because y'all know I love dropping book recommendations, but it's called Halftime, and it's by Bob Buford. And this book really helps you go from success to significance. And it really opened my eyes as well to the evolving definition of success and purpose and significance. But on my session, I'm here to share H's to finding your purpose. First one is hunger. Ask yourself this question. What's the last thing you really craved in life? Now, for me, that was stability. Many of you know that for 10 years, I was this nomad. My mom calls it homeless, but I was living out of a suitcase and I was just traveling the world and just enjoying myself. I was young and free and trying to find out what I wanted my career to be. But 10 years of that, I started to really crave stability. So a lot of your purpose is going to be found around what you have a hunger for. In this current season of life, what are you craving? Because that's going to be the first thing that you really want to ask yourself to help guide you. Okay. The second one is heart. Heart. What do you currently do that's a reflection of your heart? Or maybe the heart that you desire to have. Okay. For me, educating freely. So much of what I do on social media is democratizing access to education. There are so many aspects of humanity and life that you can't learn in school. You might not learn in the home. You won't learn it on TV. And so I'm like, I just put that on my shoulder, that responsibility. I want to democratize access to information that I think is crucial and just help elevate humanity, educate and elevate humanity. That is such a massive part of my purpose. So what can you do, or what do you do that's a reflection of your heart? People don't have to guess where I stand. They just see what I do. Ooh, that was a bar. I need sometimes just feel free to drop some emojis, okay? Some fire emojis, because that was good. People don't have to question who you are. They just got to look at what you do, okay? Heart. The third H, habits. What would you do differently if the world required you to be at your best? For me, I'd probably have to move more efficiently. I'd have to stop procrastinating on 90% of every aspect of my life. What about you? What would you do differently if the world required you to be at your best? Now, many of us don't want to hold massive leadership positions like being a governor or mayor or president. It's a huge responsibility. But if you were forced to, what would you then have to do? Who would you then need to become? These are things that are great to just ask yourself, to get you to look at the person you could become if you took yourself a little bit more seriously. Discipline, Vic, that's good. That's good. Discipline is tough. What habits would you have to develop? What characteristics would you have to just make a part of yourself? Okay, habits. The fourth H is hustle. What have people asked of you that they would pay for? Like, what if people asked you to do that they would voluntarily pay for? Okay. What do you do that could turn into a hustle? Now, I want to be clear, your purpose is not about money, but sometimes it can signal you in the direction that you need to go. Your purpose isn't about money, but it can signal you into the right direction and steer you into that place of where you're trying to go. Okay. What have people paid you for in the past? What have people requested of you? For me, I was a closet coach. Like 10 years ago, being a coach, I kind of felt like a scammer. That there wasn't like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have formal training, but people requested my services. Like, hey, Glo, I'd love to hop on a Zoom. Like, I'll pay, what's your hourly consulting fees? Like, do you coach on this? And I was like, literally still figuring out my life, felt like I had no purpose and direction, and people wanted to pay me for direction. Ultimate imposter syndrome. I was like, no, the way my ethics are set up. And I remember doing one coaching session where I offered them a refund. I felt so insecure with my lack of value that I was like, yeah. And here's the thing, in hindsight, I offered them so much because a lot of times it's not answers people are looking for, it's perspective. Sometimes it's just perspective that people are looking for, a container of hope. No, honestly, when you think about what you can offer people, sometimes it's just perspective, and that in itself is valuable. But I was so insecure in my value as a closet coach because I had no formal branding. I wasn't advertising services for coaching or consulting. So I was giving these like free lessons on Zoom, just hoping that like an ounce or a minute had some type of value. But what I didn't realize is over time, I was building confidence. So it's incredible what happens when you allow yourself to receive money for something you feel insecure about, because you have no choice but to get the confidence. Okay, I found the confidence real quick. The dollars started going up, but I was like, let me find the confidence for this. It just makes sense. Okay. The fifth H is hope. Hope. Where are you naturally more optimistic where others aren't? For me, I have a lot of hope in humanity. I have a lot of hope in peace and understanding and compassion and care. Like I genuinely feel good about the future of humanity. But if you watch the news for too long, or depending on who you follow on social media, you could think we're all going to burn in a fire tomorrow. Like we live in the same world, but two people can see very different realities. But I choose to filter what I watch. If you look at my Netflix account, you won't see gore, crime, violence. Like I have the brain of like a 10-year-old. If there's like any type of violence, I have nightmares for 3 weeks, minimum. My brain is so fragile. So I guard it with my life. I can't compartmentalize what's fiction and reality. So I just I can't entertain anything that is like toxic. If it's violent, if it's gory, if it's crude, like I have to guard my heart. And me guarding my heart and my mind allows me to be a little bit more optimistic about the direction of humanity. Whereas maybe if you're consuming anything and everything, because of course violence sells, all the gory stuff sells, like that can make you a little bit more jaded. And I think it's important to be mindful of that. Like these media companies, they know what they're doing. My formal education is in journalism and communications and media, mass media. And one of the leading things that we said is if it bleeds, it leads. If it's bloody and gory, that's the first story that we're going to cover. Okay, this was 10 years ago, broadcast journalism. I'm doing like news updates, I'm doing radio shows, and okay, Glo, lead with the goriest story, lead with the most gruesome, lead with the violence. And I'm like, okay, I'm just like young and dumb. I do what I'm told. If it bleeds, it leads. But how toxic is that now? I can actually look and see how it manifests into our culture. Okay. Welcome to another amazing day to grow. I don't know about you, but this year came and went. Whether 2021 was a good or bad year for you, it came and gone. And now it's time to get ready for 2022. What I love about October and what I love about just the way I look at the future. So finishing the year strong, I try to remember what I've been telling myself lately. And for many of you, you probably have a mantra that you don't even know about. And one of the mantras that I heard recently was by Florence Scovel Shinn. I do wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. So when I think of finishing strong, I immediately go back to a story from my childhood. I was 12 years old. And does anybody remember having to do the timed mile? Like that was a part of our physical education. Depending on where you grew up, it sucked for us. We had to run a mile. I think it was once every month, and we had to continue to beat our mile time. And so Coach Peters, he didn't know that even though I was a chubby little something, you know, I had the cheeks, I love to eat my food. So I was a chubby little something, but I was quick. I was quick with my mouth and I was quick with my legs. And so I'm in this fourth lap of my mile and I'm like, oh, and I'm just in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm getting this 7-minute mile. Like, I feel good. Like, this is it. Oh, good for me. And so once I finish the line, I slow down. And Coach Peters goes, what are you doing? You have one more lap. Get back out there and go. But I was like, no, this is my fourth lap. This is my fourth. He didn't realize that I could lap all of the skinny girls. He didn't think I was capable of running a 7-minute mile. And instead of let my pride and ego get me in that moment and say, no, Coach Peters, you could have watched me better. No. I was like, I'm gonna run the fastest lap you have ever seen in your life. Probably not ever in his life. But I got back, I said, okay. And I sprinted that last lap. I had nothing in me, but I sprinted to show him what I was capable of doing. And when I ran my 5th lap, he said, wow. Wow, that's what finishing strong is. Even when there are people that are doubting you, even when there are people that don't believe in your capabilities, even when you know you've done the work, I challenge you and I encourage you to take that extra lap. There's this quote that says the most free space in the world is the extra mile. Like that's the most uncrowded place in the world is the extra mile. No one ever goes there to get what they want. So like Coach Peters, even though in that moment I was hurt and I was kind of a little bit like annoyed that he didn't believe in me, I believed in myself and I knew what I was capable of. And ever since then, for every mile that I ran, I said, Coach Peters, You're going to watch me, right? Coach Peters, please watch me. And when I would go around those laps, I would count out loud, 1, next lap, 2, so that by 4, there was no doubt that I ran a mile. Okay, finishing strong. Now, one thing that I recently shared and one thing that I hope will encourage all of you, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a 9-to-5, or whether you're just someone who wants to have more flow in your life, there are 4 seasons. And I want everyone to write this down because this really freed me up. This freed me, it liberated me, and it allowed me to have less guilt around the way I was showing up in my life. So the first season that I want to talk about is winter. I hate winter. I'm from the Bay. I born and raised in California, grew up a little bit in Arizona, then went to college in Kansas, and then traveled around the world for 8 years. But winter season, if you stay in this season for too long, it can agitate you. But you know what my winter season is? That's my learning season. We are coming up on January. That is going to be your learning season. Ask yourself these questions. In my winter season for learning, what will I be investing in? Because even coaches need coaches. I know many of you are coaches, but coaches need coaches and leaders need to be led. What will you be reading? What skill sets will you be developing? What will you be learning for 2022? If you can start your winter season, your learning season with this approach, my goodness, you will have so much more focused energy, because not every season is meant for you to constantly be learning and investing and thinking and all of that stuff, because there's going to be other seasons, which I'm going to talk about next. My spring season is for launching, okay? After you take those 3 months to learn and learn and learn, that spring season, I need all of you to think about what you're going to be launching in April. That could be an ebook, that could be a course, it could be a workshop, it could be a retreat, it could be whatever you want it to be, a masterclass. My goodness, we are living in the most beautiful era where we get to monetize our brains. We get to think of an idea, materialize it, and get paid for it. We are blessed to live in a season like this. So spring, what will you be launching? Who will you be serving? Who will you be reaching? Who do you want to be engaging with? Now, for many of you, you might be like me, where maybe your audience is filled with several categories of people. You got mothers, you got vegans, you got plant lovers, you got travel enthusiasts. And so you have these 4 different categories of people that follow you and maybe want to learn from you. It's like, oh, well, Glo, who do I serve? Who do I focus on? Who do I build a product for? Here's how I look at it. When you go to a party and you have those 4 categories of people, let's say there's influencers in one category, mommy bloggers in another category, coaches in another category, who are you most likely to hang out with? That's who you want to serve. Who are you drawn to energetically? Who do you most enjoy spending your time with, whether you're being paid for it or not? The reason I love to serve female entrepreneurs is because that's who I hang out with, whether there's a transaction made or not. I am a female entrepreneur. That's what I know. That's what I do. I've been blogging and telling my story on the internet for 20 years before the internet was cool. Can you imagine telling people you had a blog back in 2001? Like at that time, it was AOL and AOL. Everyone used the internet for email. And I was like, well, I have a little blog. Do you want to read my blog? And I started the blog because I didn't have friends at school. I was isolated by my differences. And I was like, okay, I have Nigerian parents, but I live in America. Who do I belong to? And so I would straddle this fence every day. Like, am I you or am I them? Where is my sense of belonging? And in that sense of, or in that isolation, it allowed me to be very observational. I was very introspective. And that's a blessing now because it makes me extremely empathetic. When people go through things, I'm like, oh, I've seen that. Oh, I've done that. Oh, I've been there. Okay. So what's something about your childhood or something about your past that you can now use as a part of your business or the way you serve other people? Okay. So launching, who do you want to serve? Who do you want to be around? The next season, of course, is the summer season. That's where most of us thrive. The summer season is all about rest and rejuvenation and resetting and refreshing your mind. Living, Summer is about living, okay? Learning in the winter, launching in the spring, living in the summer. It's not natural to constantly be grinding. We don't need to be grinding 24/7. And so I want more of us to honor the season of living, honor the season of rest, because if you are constantly on, you will burn out, and burnout will be inevitable, okay? And the last season, which we just had fall equinox a couple weeks ago. So the fall season, the current season that I'm in, and the current season that I want you all to be in as well, is listening. Listening. How can we better listen to the needs of our community? How are you putting yourself in a position to serve people without strings attached? How are you finding ways to just pour, just serve, just be present, just honor and reward and thank the people that have been with you all year? It's so important, because without feedback, without knowing what people are saying about you or your products or your services, how are you going to know how to come through in the next year? This listening season, October, November, and December, is literally setting you up for your launch season. If you do the listening season really well, your customers will literally tell you, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do, I'm overwhelmed. They will give you language that you can literally use in your marketing copy to create and sell and build your next product. So today's message is going to be about advanced mindset and resiliency. I traveled for 7 years. That was my career in my 20s. I was a travel blogger. And I remember when I was in Montenegro. Montenegro's in Europe. It's in the Balkans. It's a beautiful country, probably top 5 for me. And I was walking and I was just exploring. And I remember I was getting those peculiar stares. I was used to the stares. You know, I'm a solo Black woman. I get it. I'm in a country that doesn't have many Black people. There were those stares, but this stare was different. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep on going with it. Little did I know that, well, Europe, number one, is a very big tennis continent. You have Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, all came from Europe, and they're massive global tennis stars. And little did I know, I resembled Serena Williams. And so the stares weren't about like, oh, it's just another Black woman. It was like, oh, we have this American tennis star in our country. All of these people thought I was Serena Williams, and they were trying to get my autograph. And I didn't know this about celebrities, but when they travel, a lot of times they don't want to be bothered, so they use an alias name. And I was like, no, I'm Glow, I'm not Serena. No, Glow, please, Serena Williams. And they were begging me and telling me that, no, we know that you're Serena. Please just, take a picture with us. And it was so funny, but I was like, I was literally trying to outrun the paparazzi. And I got back to my hostel, and I go out to dinner later on, and there's this one Russian man who was still able to track my whereabouts. And, as I say this out loud, it sounds a little bit creepy, but it was genuine. He had kids that loved Serena Williams. And so he said, Savina, please, for my kids. Savina, please, for my kids. And so what did I do? Got my pen, signed Serena with a smiley face, and let him on his way. That is resilience. Not the kind that we're going to talk about, but it's resilience nonetheless. And I want to talk to you guys about how when there's something that you want, no matter the circumstances, you will find a way to get it. That's entrepreneurship. That's life. But advanced mindset, I want to break down an acronym here, because advanced mindset, it comes down to your mind. So I want you guys to write out MIND, and we're going to break down a mind framework that's going to help you have a more advanced mindset. The first one, M, mission, a mission that can change the world. A lot of us are still operating from a very selfish place. And I speak from experience. When I was travel blogging, all I wanted to do was travel the world and get paid. So some of you guys have to understand, like, what is it about your skill set, your career, or your industry that you can attach to a greater cause? Maybe because of personal experience or overcome trauma. Think about it. If you're a nutritionist that overcame a disease, how can you now teach on holistic wellness? Okay. If you're a business coach, maybe, who overcame poverty, How can you now attach socioeconomic issues as a part of your branding, as a part of your messaging? Take your own personal story and attach it to a larger mission, because that's what's going to make you stand out as a leader, make you stand out as an entrepreneur, and just make you stand out in your industry in general. Intuition to speak up when it matters. Leadership is easy when things are going well. It's easy to be a leader when you don't have to actually lead on hard stuff, okay? And I was like, ooh. And I found myself like really having to feel convicted about what leadership means, and that intuition to speak up when it matters most. Because sometimes controversy is necessary in a teaching moment. Figuring out how to take something that could be controversial and turning it into a teaching moment. Every single thing that I post, you'll never find, my page is not about drama. My teaching style, my education style, nothing is about drama or gossip or hatred. That's not where I come from. It's lessons, it's learning, it's teaching. Because that's intuition as a leader. Like, okay, this needs to be spoken about. How can I speak about it in a way that no one else has covered? With grace, compassion, with light, okay? Intuition is having the ability to recognize a moment that can set your core values apart from everyone else. It is easy to do what everyone else is doing. It is easy to speak like everyone else is speaking. The hard thing is to pause and to reflect. And when you're about to speak out on something, how can you do that inner work of saying, okay, can I see myself in this situation? Have I done something like this before? Okay. The next one, N, nuanced navigation. And it's funny because I was like, what is nuance? We use it a lot of times, but we use words sometimes and we're like, wait, what's the actual textbook definition of nuance? Nuance is a subtle difference, a subtle change of expression, okay? And a lot of times you're gonna navigate through life not always needing to go with the flow of the world. And whether your business mission is to change the face of education, maybe your business mission is to change the face of marketing, again, because your advanced mindset is going to be more forward thinking. There's going to be a larger cause that you've got to attach your branding to. But you have to have nuance in your teaching, in your decision making, in your integrity, in your values. You have to be able to recognize what's for you and what's not. Okay, don't chase things. Attract them by the way you show up. Don't chase after things. Attract them by the way you're showing up in the world, okay? I think a lot of times, especially as a beginning entrepreneur in my 20s, I was still so hungry to fit in, hungry for purpose, hungry for finances because I was broke, trying to figure out like, where do I go? And your navigation, your GPS system has to have nuance. If you are going the direction of everyone else, you might not be doing it right. You might not be doing it right because leadership is going to take you to pause. It's going to force you to slow down. It's going to force you to detour sometimes. It's going to force you to put something in reverse, put the whole vehicle in reverse and say, okay, I went down this path because I saw everyone else doing it, but maybe this isn't actually where I'm supposed to be going. Okay, nuanced navigation. There should always be a subtle difference in the way you're speaking up, in the way you're showing up, in the way you're leading, in the way you're educating, in the way you're providing, in the way you're serving. There should always be nuance, okay? And then D, diligent. You want to be careful, conscious, and committed to your work. It is so easy to let the glitz and glam of success and life just overwhelm you and make you feel like everything you've done was on your own goodwill, okay? You have to be careful, conscious, and committed, not just to your work, but to the mission and staying connected to the community that you're trying to help. And you do this by dedicating yourself to a cause that is greater than yourself. And I remember I was, I think 27, I was in Jamaica the first time my blog hit 6 figures. And that was, up until that point, that was my only goal. I wanted to get paid to travel. I wanted to have a 6-figure blog. Once I get there, I'm rich, woo! I think my first year as a full-time travel blogger, I made $7,000 the entire year. So the idea of a 6-figure blog was so out of reach that I was like, if I can get there, maybe one day if I get lucky, I was like, oh, I'll just kind of stop, like, because that's all I need. And what happened when I reached 100K? Spiraled, went into a 3-week episode of depression. Because when you put so much value on money and not your core values, not your integrity, not a mission, you lose yourself. I was so, that moment of a 6-figure blog, I put so much weight in that. I didn't know what I needed to feel, but when I got there, I didn't feel anything. I was expecting like maybe my shower was gonna feel different. Maybe glitter would like pop under my balloons or pop under my pillows. Balloons would come from the sky. Like, where is my party? Like, I've had this goal. Where's the celebration? Didn't feel anything. In fact, I regressed. I felt, I stopped reading. I stopped praying. I stopped reading my devotional. I lost sight of myself. And so it's so important. Have financial goals, but my goodness, have a mission first. Have a mission first.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.